Morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Employment Committee. As usual, the meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and will also be available for viewing after the meeting. The link is available on the Council's website. Can I please ask that all members and officers have their microphone on mute until they wish or are invited to speak? I've received apologies from Mr. Harrison Fowler and Mr. Ken Robinson is present as a substitute. Mr. Paul Rudkin and Dr. John Bloxham is present as a substitute. And Mrs. Linda Broadley and Mr. Stuart Bray is expected to be present as a substitute. I'd like to welcome Deborah Taylor, who has replaced Brenda Seaton on the committee. However, Mrs. Brenda Seaton is substituting for Mr. Lovegrove today. Okay.
We'll be asking questions later.
So also Jane Moore, Chief Executive, is hoping to join us for the item on the working arrangements policy later on. So the agenda. Firstly, we need to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of December 2025. These can be found on pages 3 to 8 of the agenda pack. I move that these are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Does everyone agree, please? Thank you. Question time. I've received no questions from members of the public. Questions asked by members. I've received no questions from members. Urgent items. I have not been notified of any urgent items. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest in respect of any of the items on the agenda, please? I've received no petitions. Our first substantive item on the agenda is the Work Programme 2026. This is on pages 9 to 14 of your agenda packs. Lucy Littlefair, Assistant Director of People, Property and Business Services, will present this report. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, hopefully a quick one. So the purpose of the report is to consult you on the proposed reporting timetable and work programme for 2020. I should say 6. It says 2025. Apologies. Terms of reference from the committee were agreed in December 2024. We have included a copy of them, and the committee is going to be asked just to note the contents of the terms of reference. But we've also updated the work programme for the coming year. That's included in Appendix A. So I'm really just asking the committee to approve the work programme and note the contents of the terms of reference.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, please? Okay, so the committee is asked to approve the work programme for 2026 and note the contents of the terms of reference. Does everybody agree? Thank you. So item 8 is a report on the gender pay gap reporting. This is on pages of 15 to 26. Andrew Stewart, Head of People Services, will present this report. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is part of our statutory duty around the gender pay gap. Just to be clear that this isn't the equality pay gap, equal pay gap. This is about the gender pay gap itself. This is a statutory requirement that we have to publish by March each year. Under our pay gap, we are looking at 4 quartiles: lower, middle, and upper. And just to clarify on paragraph 6, that should say lower, middle, and upper, rather than lower, middle from that point of view. We are required to break this down to understand where is our gender pay gap within the workforce. To be clear, this isn't in relation to we pay for equal work because we have job evaluation schemes in place. This is more to do with the nature of the work. In that male employees are in higher graded roles and female employees are in lower graded roles. The paper goes on to explain that this is partly due to the way our workforce, the type of work we do, and there are some stereotypes that we're working to redress so that in care professions you would predominantly see a female workforce, and 75% of our workforce is female. From that perspective, we have about 20, the split is about 25-75. The main point is that we're reporting a 5% median and a 5% mean gender pay gap. How that compares to other councils is that it varies slightly, but the point to note is that each council is slightly different based on its workforce composition, because they may be providing different services. They may or may not have outsourced services to different sectors. So there's no way of directly like for like comparing our council with others, but we have included that within the report so that it just gives you a little bit of information to benchmark our performance. We have seen improvement against the mean target with a reduction over the last 4 years, and we have seen an overall reduction in median, but we have maintained our position from last year, maintaining 5% from that point of view. So I just wanted to, as part of our statutory duty, the work that we are doing to redress the gender pay gap is around making sure that everyone has a fair chance to apply for council roles. Our aim is to ensure that job information is clear, neutral and free from unnecessary barriers so that appointments are based on merit. The council, there should be equal opportunity to progress through hard work and ability. We will continue to review our processes and remove unnecessary obstacles. We aim to create a system where advancement reflects performance and contribution. We will continue to review our policies that promote work-life balance. Our focus is ensuring that staff can balance work and personal responsibilities in a way that supports productivity, job satisfaction and value for money for residents. The recommendation is the committee is asked to note the contents of this report and support publication of the gender pay gap by March 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, please? Mr. Charlton first, thank you.
Thank you. Just so I'm clear, you're saying that the median or otherwise pay gap is solely down to males being higher positions than females, but otherwise everybody in a like for like role is being paid the same?
Correct.
Thank you. Mrs. Taylor, please.
Yeah, just kind of addressing that issue where you said the stereotypical jobs that we probably got more females in, like the social care works and things like that. I took what you said about the adverts are quite neutral and stuff, but how do we shift that balance? Because for me, male social workers are a huge benefit to our families and to this organisation. How do we encourage that? So we have neutral adverts, but do we need to encourage more males? And are we allowed to do that under the Equality Act or not? I just wonder how we can encourage more males to apply for those roles, and obviously the other way around of more females applying for more senior roles. So it's how do we encourage that without going against the Equality Act?
I think it starts a little bit earlier than that, because it's about people getting the qualifications around social work and understanding from that perspective. So it's working with our partners who educate the individuals to promote it as a more inclusive profession going forward. And there is some work being done in both adults and children's in terms of promoting that going forward. So it's really looking at specific career paths and working with them and giving them advice and support and promoting it in certain areas where we feel it's appropriate. But it's just making sure that everyone has the same opportunity, but it's just maybe actively promoting it in some areas.
I suppose your point there is in schools, isn't it? And what we're doing working with schools about giving those opportunities and, you know, career advice within schools. And can we do more with schools to encourage them? I don't know if they still have careers. I used to go and see careers, and you're not going to do very well because you're rubbish at school. So, you know, do they still do that? But
I'm not confident in terms of to be able. I'd have to go and find that out and come back to you on that one. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Oh, Mr. Buxton, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, does the part-time pay penalty come into this? You know, people who work part-time tend to take a hit on their career prospects, and it tends to be women more than men that go part-time after having children and things. Often in other companies I've seen, you'll be allowed to come back and work part-time after having kids, but often at a more junior level. So that's going to, you know, have a knock-on effect on people working in more senior roles. And I just wonder if we're looking at the policies we have around families in that situation, and whether we're looking at the councils that are doing better than us to see if there's anything extra we can do.
Yes, so that is part of one of our commitments around work-life balance. You do see that within employment. We are a very flexible employer, I would say, and we go above and beyond in some areas in terms of our policy provision, in that we provide enhanced neonatal leave and different types of leave as part of that. We also have an inclusion commitment to support with caring responsibilities, because it's that societal gap of that people in employment are supporting parents of an older age and children at the same time from that point of view. So we're just trying to we are reviewing that consistently to ensure that we are trying to redress any imbalances to support people to maintain employment. Did you want to come in, Lucy?
Yeah, can I just add? I think there is always work to do. Yeah, 'cause I think you're absolutely right in terms of the more senior roles within the organisation. You tend to see advertised as full time. Okay, and whilst our recruitment statement does have a paragraph in about the type of flexible work, employee that we are, probably talking from personal experience, I know that people will be put off applying for a post if it's advertised as full-time, if actually really they only want part-time, because they probably think that that's a fairly awkward conversation to have. At what point do you have that conversation? Do you have it up front and risk not being shortlisted? Again, just people's perceptions, isn't it? Or actually, do you wait till you've been offered the job and then start to try and negotiate? Yeah, you're kind of part-time working. So we have definitely got a challenge with the organisation, and I think it's with all our managers about not always thinking this is a full-time job, because actually there's then a significant part of the kind of the potential market, if you like, is then turned off, if you like, from it. So I think once people are into the council, then absolutely, and you'll see from the kind of workforce stats, we have got a lot of part-time posts. But actually, if you looked at and kind of the more senior roles within the organisation, you might have people doing 4 days a week, but we haven't got a huge amount of job shares or anything like that at a senior role. So it's definitely it's something for the council, it's something for society as a whole, isn't it, to address.
So is that something perhaps the other councils are doing better and we could perhaps learn from them?
Haven't necessarily noticed, in terms of other councils. We can definitely have a look, in terms of just how they're kind of promoting themselves out there, the types of jobs. I think it's a real issue actually in the UK generally, in terms of roles. But no, noted, and we're doing a lot of work at the moment, because recruitment of staff in certain key roles is a real issue. Retaining our staff, fits with the kind of discussion we'll be having later around the kind of working arrangements, those sorts of things. It is a key factor, for individuals. Makes us an attractive employer, doesn't it?
Thank you very much. So the committee is asked to note the content of the report and support publication of the gender pay gap by 30th of March 2026. Does everybody agree, please? Thank you. Item 9 on our agenda is the Workforce Report 2025 to 26 Quarter 3 update. This is on pages 27 to 44. Andrew Stewart, Head of People Services, will present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Damien, are we all right to bring up the slides at all? Thank you. While Damien's bringing up the slides, so what we've done the report, like last time, we've done the report itself to show the document, and then we've done a slide deck to put it in a more visual content to work that through. So hopefully, Damien, you're ready. Or thanks, Damien. So if you could move to the first slide, please. So the first slide is about the headcount and full-time equivalent of the organisation. The full-time equivalent represents 37 hours. So that's the average, well, that is the contractual full-time worker within the authority. It shows that over time we have seen a reduction in our headcount. Specifically between 2023 and 2025, we've seen a reduction from 6,119 to 5,881. And and FTE, we've seen a reduction. We've seen an increase from 4,868.6 to 4,916.39. It shows that there is a reduction in the overall number of employees, but a slight increase in the overall workforce capacity in terms of the work that we're doing. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Damien? Yep. So this represents how this is broken down by departments over time. What you can see on the graph is around, there have been some slight variations in departments. So you can see with the yellow line shows a reduction in corporate services. This related to a 2P exercise where people were moved outside of the organisation. And then there was an increase within children's and family services. This relates to a piece of work, a national piece of work around social workers having to have a certain level of experience within local councils rather than working directly through agencies. So that this was related to a conversion of agency work to substantive employees. Can you move on to the next slide, please? As part of the request from the committee last time, there was a request to review agency use. So we've prepared slides relating to the agency spend overall as of the council, and also in terms of the usage of our managed service provider who provides our agency centrally for us. To understand this, we spent approximately 1.5 million a month on temporary workforce last year, but that compares to a substantive pay bill of around 22 million per month on substantive staff. We've got no spend in public health, and we have seen a reduction in the spend in children's and families as a part of the conversion from agency work to substantive employees. We have seen some work in terms of the agency spend and headcount can be different, as the headcount is based on when the resource was used, and spend is based on when the invoice for the agency worker was paid. So it's quite hard to anticipate the supply and demand element of it. We work directly with the managed service provider on their performance to make sure that agency staff is filled as per request given. Can I move on to the next slide, please, Damien? Looking at absence in Q3, we have seen a slight decrease in absence because historically we have seen that this quarter is usually we do see a rise in this quarter overall because it's the winter months. This is traditionally when flu and viral infections take effect to our workforce, and we have our peak of absence has been seen in September this year of 9.17, and we're now reporting 9.11 in terms of performance. And percentage-wise, we are reporting at 3.47%. Can I have the next slide, please? So we then broken that down into departmental absence to show how they directly compare with each other. We can see that the lowest absence is within chief executives, and the highest is within adults and communities. And an exempt paper is planned to be shared with you later to go through the details within adults and communities to explain how that's being proactively managed from that point of view. Can I have the next slide, please? This is about absence reason within the organisation. The main three reasons that we're seeing is stress, depression and mental health, and then musculoskeletal, and then combined COVID or cough, colds and flus represent the majority of the absence reported within the organisation. We do a lot of work to support individuals with stress, depression and mental health. And a lot of that work is actually to maintain people within employment. So if we hadn't got the provision for mental health support in place, there is a perception that the absence rate around mental health could be significantly higher, because we offer a counselling and wellbeing service to our employees, in addition to that provided by the community and through GP support. To note, the non-disclosure element does represent a bit of an issue, but that relates to how the absences is recorded and whether the underlying reasons was entered at the point in time the absence is reported onto our system where we record absence. We have explored removing the category, but sometimes it's needed where medical conditions need to be treated as confidential and people may have access to the system. So we can't actually remove that reason from the system itself. Can I have the next slide, please, Damien? There was also a request in terms of leaving reasons around attendance and conduct and capability. So we have prepared a summary of those dismissals that we have received over the last 3 years. The main point to note is that over the last 9 months, we have seen an increase in performance management and attendance cases, which tracks in line with the increased levels of absence within the organisation. That does put pressure on the HR team supporting those managers, and managers now actively managing the support. And in terms of, you can see that we are consistently taking action. Dismissal is a last resort from our perspective, and we are supporting, but we do actually take action, seeing that we dismissed 20 people for capability reasons in the last year, and 14 people left either related to ill health, either relating to dismissal or ill health retirement from that perspective. Next slide. Attendance and APR compliance. I think I've talked about this in previous committee meetings, that there is an issue with the system reporting. We are reporting this so that you can actually see people having active appraisals, but we have an issue with our system that we're trying to redress through making sure that managers are more aware of where to record the next appraisal. So we believe there's a reporting issue that we're looking to address to move forward. Have the next slide, please. And then finally, we're reporting the workforce demographic profile. This is as part of our duty to report under the public sector equality duty. We need to publish these details to show that we have analysed the workforce based on protected characteristics as defined under the Equality Act. This is just for information for you. We do this on an annual basis at the February meeting to show how that's reported. And then if we can move on to the next slide. This shows the changes in trends from this year to last year. Overall, it shows that our data is getting better. So we're improving the accuracy of the data that we're receiving, and people are feeling more comfortable to disclose from that perspective. We have an increasing ageing workforce with a slight shift of 0.1% compared with last year of people within 15 years of retirement. We've been nationally recognised for our work on menopause and supporting with that. And a further report is planned in May around focus on men's mental health and suicide prevention, because we've been working with Andy's Man Club to support and engage, given our stress, anxiety and depressions issues reported within the organisation. So I'll stop there and then ask for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, please? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Taylor, please.
Thank you. Just want to go back to page 40, graph 10 about the ill health, and just looking at that dismissal. So under what circumstances would someone be dismissed for ill health rather than sort of retired on ill health?
Where there is an underlying medical condition. So a condition that's causing the capability issue. So capability itself may be that it's performance issues in general, but where there's an underlying health condition like a disability, that means that they cannot, it's usually that something has happened, they've had a stroke, or there's been some unfortunate heart attack, and then that's mean that they've not been able to return to the duties that they were previously employed to do.
So their class has been dismissed, are they? That rather than, I just when I read it, it's like quite brutal, doesn't it? That if someone's ill, had an accident or something, that they're then dismissed. It just seems a brutal tone to me.
Fortunately, it's the only way of actually ending somebody's employment contract. Yeah, and I wasn't sure whether your question was also asking is that there are those circumstances where employees, just that their level of attendance isn't good enough, and that ultimately they have lots of warnings, they work their way through that kind of process, and ultimately if they don't improve, then yeah, we do part company. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got Mr. Charlesworth next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's about agency use. £1.5 million a month. How much more expensive is an agency person than an employee of the council? And it would be nice to know that breakdown of agency workers. How many are covering absence or vacancies, or actually doing a role that we don't do ourselves at the council? They're filling in or something. That breakdown would be useful.
I don't have that information to hand, but I can certainly get that. We do record that information. Was there a question other than additional information as part of that?
Well, there was the cost.
The cost.
How much more is an agency employee than a person employed by the council?
That depends on the urgency of the request, and also the level of, so if we've got an ongoing arrangement and they're providing the service, we can get it cheaper, but if it's last minute, it can be more expensive. And it also depends on the profession, the career, and the actual the availability and supply of the profession that we're seeking to get agency through.
Because I know you've got to, certain roles have got to be filled, I accept that, but you hear horrendous horror stories like in the NHS, where, you know, hundreds, thousands of pounds an hour are being sought by agencies. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't in that position.
Yeah, and Lucy, did you want to take that?
Yeah, it's something that we are really conscious of, and I think you know, there's a different picture depending on the nature of the role. Okay, so I know, for example, in E&T, yes, they've got quite a heavy reliance on agency workers in some areas. Yeah, some of them are very technical areas. Yeah, where simply that, you know, once HS2 came along and all the rest of it, everybody's after the same group of staff, aren't they? And actually, you know, working on an interim basis can be fairly lucrative, can't it, for some individuals? But equally, you know, some of our waste operatives, for example, yeah, in that we do use agency staff. But what we try and make sure that we do is that what you don't want is the scenario where your own permanent staff, if you like, yeah, on a kind of a much lower rate than the agency staff, because that's kind of, well, you then lose your own staff to go and work on kind of from an agency perspective. Do you know what I mean? So there's those scenarios where we do our absolute best, yeah, in terms of trying to get really comparable rates, yeah, in terms of where we're using agency staff or not. There are other scenarios within the organisation, as I said, where, for example, I know, like within property at the moment, you know, I've virtually got a 50% kind of vacancy rate, and I am having to use interims to be able to fill some of those roles at the moment, and their rates are higher than our current staff. So it's a real sector issue. Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, I know that the efficiency review is looking at agency staff across the board and what we can do to kind of reduce our rates, but there are significant sectors that unfortunately, yeah, we're kind of beholden to the market in terms of that's yeah, often where you have to recruit some of your staff from in order to be able to deliver services.
Thank you. I've got Mr. O'Shea next, then Mr. Cook, please. Thank you.
Mr. Charlesworth picked me to that. Good for you. And just to come back on another question, you know, you said, you know, somebody wasn't probably capable when they'd had a stroke or a heart attack. Surely, if they're in that position, we'd ill health them, wouldn't we? We wouldn't dismiss them.
Yes, that's right. So we've categorised dismissal and retirement together. So actually, we would be retiring them rather than dismissing them on that basis.
Mr. Cook, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's to continue the question that's already been asked about the agency staff. It's quite a large amount of money, and it's good to hear that you're tackling this. In my experience, that agency staff seems to be the easier way rather than having people, for instance, if you say ladies that get pregnant or men that abuse mental health or
I'm not suggesting that happens, but agency staff seems to be an easier way just to get someone in and cover that duty. Then there's no ties to that person when they're asked to leave. Is there a word called flexibility within the contract of the county council? Are other people asked and requested to cover those positions if it's short term, or is it through the managers an automatic, like, let's just get an agency staff in? Because that seems a lot of money, because if you've got somebody who's off sick short term and you're paying a wage there, and then you're getting an agency staff. This is just my experience out there, because agency staff, as you know, is almost double, if not treble, the amount of money you're paying that staff that's not there. That's a big figure, 1.5. And my second question, well, not a question, an observation really, adults and communities, that seems to be the highest department for stress, depression and mental health. Now, I can understand why that is, first and foremost, but what are we doing to tackle that exactly, and what can be done more? So, thank you.
I'll pick those up, Chair. In terms of the kind of 1.5 million and that being a kind of lot of money, I suppose, I don't think agency is necessarily the easiest route for our managers. Managers have tight budgets to operate within, and we will always want to recruit either temporary or permanent staff, if you like, onto the council's books, rather than use agency staff. And I think, as you can see, the work, for example, like the work we've done in children's, that we were relying on agency staff, and we've done a lot of work to bring those staff onto our books. So there's always more. There's always absolutely is more you can do. I don't believe it is the first port of call for a member for a manager. Yeah, in terms of going to agency, I think there are times when, I don't know, service is that critical that somebody's gone off sick, for example, and they need somebody turning up, if you like, to provide a service. And actually, yeah, an agency worker is, you're able to access that far quicker. But in the majority of cases, managers will always attempt, and we've been able to evidence that actually through the information that we've provided to Newton, is that for some of these roles we have rolling recruitment adverts that are just there all the time. Yeah, and we just can't fill the roles, and we have to often top up with agency.
So can I come back on that before I forget the point? It's like, is there a time limit for an agency staff to cover a position, or is it just can be a rolling, can there be, back in the day it used to be 6 months, and then you had to be employed if you was working casual in a company. And so an agency staff, am I right in hearing that they could be just here for years?
Technically, they could be here for years, but we do get reports that come through to our departmental management teams that always looks at the agency workers that we've got, and there's that scrutiny and challenge around people, in terms of the length of time that they've been here. But it should be a short-term solution, to those individuals, people who are on temporary contracts within the organisation. In terms of their employment rights, you're absolutely right that there's certain kind of legislation which allows them to be then considered as a permanent employee. Agency workers don't have those same rights.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, did you want to ask a question? Thank you.
And not answer the second bit of your question. Yeah, so Kerry's going to pick that up, in the next report that's on adults and communities in the deep dive. Okay.
Cheers, Chair. Thank you very much. Mine's with headcount. With LGR on the horizon, we've got lots of authorities in Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland who potentially will shift and merge. How we looked at managing that, for example, to minimise potential redundancy costs, and where synergies exist? Is it better to do it early now and manage that than fill all our vacancies and then having to offload people, if that's the word, but make them redundant, because that's a costly exercise. So I didn't see anything in this report regarding that, and I think that's one of the biggest things that's going to happen to the council in the next 18 months to 24 months. So yeah, you could pick that up. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got kind of that very much in our mind. It's I suppose there's a couple of points there. One is, what's the sweet spot at the point that you start to kind of hold vacancies, really, with that in mind. Once we're clear on kind of, I suppose, that you know, the direction, what the decision's going to be. How it tends to work is that you would then have some sort of like formal agreement, with the other kind of organisations, which would be about how you're going to deal with all your kind of workforce issues. So that, you know, for example, if a vacancy is coming up, then maybe it's advertised within that pool of staff in the short term. So we're not at that stage at the moment. We're fully anticipating, to get into that, once we're clear as to what the direction is, and we'll put kind of arrangements in place. Because you're absolutely right. What we don't want to be doing is, bringing more people into the organisation if potentially, we're either going to be needing to be reducing our headcount or actually, considering employees in other organisations.
Thank you. The committee is asked to note the content of the workforce report for Q3. Does everyone agree, please? Thank you. Item 10 is a report regarding organisational change policy and procedure action plans. This is on pages 45 to 50. Damien Buckley, Democratic Services Officer, will present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to present the committee with an update of the current action plans, which contain provision for compulsory redundancy and details of progress on their implementation. Two appendices are attached to the report. One outlines action plans which have been completed, and the other outlines action plans which are underway, and the committee are asked to note the contents of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Charlesworth.
Yeah, just a comment to remind officers, I mean, there are still some relatively new members here. Acronyms. TUs, EHRIA, CETs, not helpful.
Yeah, I'll pick that up and take it back. Thank you.
Thank you. We are asked to note the update provided on the current action plans, which contain provision for compulsory redundancy and details of progress in their implementation. Does everyone agree, please? Thank you. So item 11, date of next meeting. The next meeting of the committee is scheduled to be held on the 21st of May 2026. Item 12, as mentioned at the start of the meeting, there are no urgent items. So next is the exclusion of the press and public. The next two items on the agenda contain exempt information. I therefore propose that we exclude the press and public for these items under section 100A (4) of the Local Government Act 1972, as discussion would likely to disclose exempt information within Schedule 12A. In the case of item 14, attendance management focus on adults and community, information is Paragraph 4, information relating to any consultations or negotiations or contemplated consultations or negotiations in connection with any labour relations matter arising between the authority or a minister of the Crown and employees of or office holders under the authority. And paragraph 5, information in respect of which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings. In all the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining the exemptions outweighs the public interest in disclosure at this stage. Those in support? Yeah. Okay. Okay.